good morning, or good day, or good evening, whatever it may be. Well, we're going to talk a little bit about this time of year. We're going from winter into spring, and what that's going to do is going to cause our lakes to change in temperature, which causes our fish to change in position and in the way they react. So, bass fishing is my favorite thing to do. Lots of bass stuff. Lots of bass rods. So, we're going to talk about winter, where they are right now, or where they were, into what's called a pre-spawn. Spawning is when they make their nest or their beds and they put their eggs in there for hatching. So there is a process that they go to as water temperatures change to go from where they are now in winter, at least they are here, and they're about to move into what's called a pre-spawn, sort of a staging area, into a spawning area. So, I have a map of Shasta Lake, just a portion of the map, because Shasta Lake's huge. It's like this big octopus with all these little arms and these little coves and bays and points and stuff, and it's a great lake to see how bass is going to move into these different areas. So let's look at this map, and then we'll talk about where they are now, where they're going to be in another week or two probably, and then where they're going to end up. And then we're going to talk about how we fish them, in all these different stages. And then what the water temperatures must be in order for them to move into these different areas. So, please subscribe and like below. I really would appreciate it. Good support for the channel. I'll keep doing videos like this. So this is a nice time of year to get excited because you're... Okay, so this is our map of Shasta Lake in Northern California. It's a huge lake. This is just a very small piece of it, but it's a very deep lake. So, in the winter, as the water cools, the bass are more of a warm water fish. So they need to go and hide from the cooler water. As the top of the lake continues to cool, they dive deeper. So, in the winter, we're going to find them in the deep portions of this lake. So, in the sort of that main channel, and then closer to the ridges where it drops off in the depths, we're going to find them right now, and it's about 48-degree water right now, about 50 feet or farther down. And they're very, 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 very still. You may not even see them on a fish finder. But we're about to see the water get up to 50 degrees and plus. Between 50 and 60 degrees, the lake turns into something called, for the bass, a pre-spawn stage. What the bass do is that they will start to migrate up into the shallower waters. They don't like that cool water, so what they'll usually do is try to find areas that are shallower but not exposed to a lot of elements. But they're basically setting themselves up to go into very shallow protected coves. So look for them sort of at these points in the lake. As the point shallows coming into a cove, they're going to come up from the bottom of the lake onto these points. And if it's got a sharp drop off, great, because it allows the fish to go ahead and ambush other fish like shad or bluegill or something like that. They're going to start feeding heavily in the pre-spawn stage. And as the waters continue to warm into the 50s and from 50 to 60 degrees or higher, when it gets past 50 or 60, past 60 degrees, we're going to start seeing those fish move into these very protected shallow coves. And again, they need warmth in order for those eggs to hatch. So sort of like an incubator. So what we want to do is look for them as the water comes from 50 to 60 degrees onto these points that lead into these protective coves. And then when the water gets to about 60 degrees or higher, they're going to go into these protected coves in very shallow water, usually 3 to 5 feet, to go ahead and lay their eggs not on soft bottoms. They like hard bottoms. So look for something with maybe sand, but rocks. They may put their eggs on stumps, pea gravel, things like that. So find those coves that cater to that type of bottom. And again, we want it protected from the elements. We don't want it in current, and we want it to where it's sunny if it can be. If you can find those right where that's their destination, look for the points off of that going into that area for pre-spawn. But right now in Oregon and Northern California, we're in the pre-spawn. After they lay their eggs, they're going to be sitting on those beds. This is a great opportunity to fish those beds. And after the hatching, we have a wonderful, wonderful opportunity to catch fish. It is just amazing. So now hopefully that helps you to see this sort of the migration of these the bass. So going from deep water to medium staging area to shallow bedding area, we call that sort of like the Bass Highway. That's the Bass Highway. So understanding this route, this road, and sometimes the Bass Highway actually follows maybe a ditch in, a crevice or something within that lake. So when an app that this comes from is called iBoating. It's free for your local lakes, and if you want something larger and a larger area, it's like $20 for the whole country. So iBoating gives you topographical information for everything. So that's really a nice app to use, and I use it all the time when I go fishing. Sort of before I even go onto a lake, I look at my topographical information, sort of see where I think the bass are going to be, and then I paddle over to it. So iBoating, it's called iBoating. But it allows you to see sort of these channels within the lake. Bass will follow these channels, and that's a really neat thing. So it gives you a lot of information. You're not just going blind into a spot. You don't need a fish finder, although a fish finder helps. But in the winter, you don't see the fish anyway. So, they are so still on the bottom, they just blend in. So you really are going with some intelligence, a little homework, and a little, just a little preparation to go over to these areas and fish them. When the fish is on the bottom, deep, they are lethargic. You have to fish them very, very slow. And you're going to use plastics typically, maybe a worm, a drop shot, a Nico, something like that. And you're just going to, you are going to pull that thing so slow onto the bottom. And when they're in that mode, almost hibernation mode, they are not going to work hard at getting anything. But as they move up into the pre-spawn, again, this is where they sort of fill their bellies. And this is where they're going to get really active. And you're going to be working an area probably around 10 feet or so, and usually with a nice drop-off. And look for areas like that. This is where, plastics always work, by the way, but jerk baits, lipless cranks work really, really well. But yeah, you can use something as simple as that. And there's a sort of a medium diver, big lip, and it goes down, and and you work these, and they're going to look for active fish. If you a good video for you to look at is that I made on the instincts of a bass and how they actually learn through other fishing. So if you're fishing something all the time one way, it ain't going to work all the time. So you need to change it up. So that's another neat thing too. So I would recommend, I'll try to put it up here, and for you to look at that video. But as they move into that area, use lipless cranks. You can use swimmers. You could use jerk baits. You could use crank baits. You can use just about anything at this point that'll fish anywhere from 3 to 10 feet, which is really nice. Now, as they move into the shallows, you again, plastics or creature baits work really, really well. And bringing them on top of the bed, bringing the creature baits on top of the bed, really slow, sort of, you can put this in sort of a Texas rig with the hook coming through it and just sort of pull it through. And that mama is going, I mean, they're huge too. This is the time when they're bedding and right on pre-spawn to get the biggest fish of your life. So this is the time of year to get your personal best, or as we say, a PB, your personal best. And if you do this, you will go ahead and you will get things like you will get. Hopefully, you'll get yourself a an 8 to 10 pounder. That'd be awesome. And then as they hatch, now this is the funnest part, is post spawn for me, because I love top water fishing. I love it. I mean, there's nothing better to see a fish come out of the water, big bass, grab your lure. This is what we call a walking lure. And these things right here, when you pull it, they dart this way, this way, this way, this way, this way, this way. And they splash and they make noise. And what the bass will just come out of the water and just engulf it. And that's when you hook them. And it is, topwater fishing is awesome, after they spawn. Although you could probably do it when they're spawning too. And they are, topwater lures look all sorts of different ways, big, small. Me, I like the bigger ones, but it is an amazing thing. If you ever want, my very first bass I ever caught was on a pencil lure, walking it, and I got a topwater hit, 2.5 pounder. That was my very first bass. So, again, just to review this a little bit, when the water is less than 50 degrees, okay, they're deep. The bass are deep. So, and they're very lethargic. You fish very slow, very purposeful. When the water becomes 50 degrees to 60 degrees, pre-spawn. They move from the depths to sort of a staging area on a point, coming into a good spawn area. This is the time you can use just almost anything. Whatever is working for you, great. You're going to be working from 3 to 10 feet typically. And you're going to be doing that until the water reaches to about 60 degrees or better. Then they're going to be moving into those protected coves that are shallow with a hard bottom. At that point, you're going to use a creature bait or a worm or something like that, and you're going to be just dropping it and pulling it over these beds, and they'll just hit it. You could use shallow diving ones like a square bill crankbait. See if I got, here's one. This is what we call a square bill crankbait. See the square bill? And this is a very shallow diver. And again, that's only going to go down to a couple feet. And so you can use something like that. And then in a post spawn, really the most fun you'll ever have is working the top water. And top water fishing is the best. So I hope this helps you out a little bit in this time of year. So again, a lot of it has to do with the water temperature. If there's a way for you to gauge that temperature, maybe with a pool thermometer, just go, when you're out there, checking the temperature of the water with a pool thermometer. They're cheap. You can get them at any hardware store. And checking the temperature. If you have a fish finder, great. It'll tell you what temperature the water is. And again, when it's cold, you're not going to see a lot of fish. You're just not, they're there. They just ain't moving. And they're sitting on the bottom. So I hope this helps. Please subscribe and hit like below. And really enjoy this time of year. My lakes are starting to defrost, which is great. Gerber Lake right now is only frozen around the edges. We have some open water in the middle. And so I've been going over to Shasta, as you know, the picture that you saw. Shasta has so many points, so many coves, so many things. They have so many bass. So it's they're at 48 degrees now, so maybe in another week or so, we're going to start seeing that pre-spawn. The fish are going to start to move up. And that's going to be very, very, very exciting for people who live in the area or even close to the area like me. So have fun. With these tips, you won't be terrible at fishing. I guarantee it. So take care, everybody.